Hello, this is Hope, and you're listening to Covert Castaway. Welcome to my weekly diary of what I learn and how I cope with transitioning to life as a liveaboard cruiser. In today's podcast, I share my conversation with my husband about the initial commissioning going on in Rochelle France, while I'm still in California. Later in the day, after we recorded it, the travel ban was announced, and I'll share our own personal dilemma for what comes next. I'm recording this podcast from our house in Tahoe, in a blizzard, which is why you might hear the 40-mile-per-hour winds howling in the background from time to time while I'm recording. This isn't what I had planned. I should have been traveling globally for work in the midst of major activities going on with my company, which is why I wasn't initially going to be in France for our commissioning and why my husband went early. Instead, my husband would take the lead and I would meet him there at the back end of his 6-week trip and we would fly back together. At least that was the plan. Everything, of course, has changed. With my work travel canceled and now everyone working from home, I chose to head to Tahoe. The view is better, and getting out of the Bay Area didn't sound like a terrible idea. Things are a bit more low-key up here, with people more concerned about stocking up for the coming storm than what was going on with the virus. And the local grocery stores still have plenty of toilet paper. This little slice of normalcy certainly is helpful when I start missing him really badly. The day after this was recorded, we had a long discussion about possible scenarios where he and I may be separated for quite some time. We're taking it day by day, but the likelihood of my now going to travel to meet him seems pretty small. While he's a citizen and the current travel ban doesn't directly apply, at least as of today, he would still have to travel by train to Paris, through the Paris airport, fly on a 13-hour flight back through San Francisco, and then quarantine himself for 2 weeks upon his return home. We're big fans of Dr. Fauci, who said he certainly wouldn't fly if given the choice. So there you go. The worst case would be that my husband stays there for some time, potentially moving onto the boat while both countries have found a way to contain the spread of the virus. Both of us are healthy, so we even discussed pursuing our original plans with me joining him, which might increase our risk of getting it, but if we're going to get it anyway at some point, that would be that. But should we need treatment, getting it in a surge in a foreign country would probably be a problem. Or perhaps there would be some other unknown issues that unfold as we try to return. With all that somber news up front, I do want to share the conversation we recorded that picks up where we left off last time, as the boat was coming out of the factory and waiting for its ride to the port for commissioning and splash. Doing this podcast is a helpful distraction for me, and hopefully it continues to be helpful for you guys out there too. Okay, so we have a lot to catch up on. I think what's interesting is to hear about how the boat got transported over, what that was like. There was sort of some last-minute confusion on timing, and talk about what's been going on commissioning over the last couple of weeks. So how was it seeing the boat on a big trailer and how that ended up going, kind of getting from the factory over to the Port of La Rochelle?
Yes, so the boat was transported to the Port of La Rochelle without any problem. But stepping back, it was a little interesting because initially it was scheduled on a Thursday. Then the night before, I got a call that it would not be Thursday, but then Friday. And I was like, okay, no big deal. And then on Thursday evening, got a call that, okay, it's going to be transported on Friday, but not Friday morning as usual, as all the transport seems to happen, but in the or like at 12:30. So I'm like, okay. And suddenly mid-morning, I get a call from Baptiste. They say, I just heard from Pierre, the boat is already on the way.
What?
I know. And
sleeping in, which is probably what you were doing.
No, I was not sleeping in, but it was suddenly like, okay, how do we find the boat? And so,
oh no, you had to like drive around and find the boat?
Yeah, so we had to first find each other with Baptiste. He had offered to drive behind the boat so we can follow the boat all the way from the factory. But in this case, we had to get a hold of the driver and find a meeting point, and then follow the boat for the remaining of the trip. So that worked out, went with the flow. It was just a little confusion when they checked with the transport company.
Yeah. Okay. So you're chasing the boat down. So you catch up with the boat. So were there any, scary parts, like when you were worried it was going to tilt weird or fall off or anything?
And it's definitely a little tense, and then you realize that it's they're used to it, and
Yeah,
they do
they
a good
do this
job.
for a living. Yeah.
Yeah. What I was really shocked about is there is one driver who drives the truck, but at the same time controls the hydraulic system on the truck to lift the boat up and down and to tilt it. And I was really impressed that was the job for one guy. I talked to the guy afterwards. He says, yeah, you need to sleep well the night before. And it's definitely draining to do this. But
it's just impressive because the videos you sent were, through these little tiny roundabouts and stuff. And I thought that was really funny. Yeah. Okay. So the boat shows up at the port and they put it up on blocks. And so you got a chance to kind of look at everything for the first time. What was that like?
That you see boats on blocks and you don't think too much about it, but when you see your own boat being like kind of put down on those little blocks, and you're like, oh, should we add anything? And but you trust that they know what to do.
It's like teeter-tottering on these little blocks.
Yeah. And so the boat hasn't moved. There was a lot of windy days, and I would swing by some bicycle and checking the boat was still there.
But you got to see the boat, the underside of the boat for the first time. So there was a bunch of holes, in the boat.
So you walk around and definitely there are a lot of holes in the boat, and especially with the heads so there's the owner's side, there is one cabin and then one bathroom, but on the other side you have two heads next to each other, and so you have a lot of holes. And when you see that, you're like, oh no, that doesn't look good. On top of that, we're adding more holes because we put like the blue water lights,
the four underwater. There's four underwater lights, right?
Yeah.
Then what were those other bigger holes? I forget.
Those are like drainage and stuff. So so there's that. There are holes because we are adding salt water intake for our heads. So there'll be more holes there. So in the end,
it's a lot of holes. Well, that's the thing is, when we were kind of thinking through, should we get this? Should we get that? All these features on the options list, you're like, yeah, we should do this and that. And then you look at like how many holes it creates in the bottom of the boat. It's kind of scary, right? Like
it is. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a difference between the holes that are underwater and the holes that are above water. But when you look at the boat sitting on blocks, everything looks like like one
Swiss
big
cheese boat.
Yeah, exactly.
So funny. Cool. And so all the commissioning is sort of started over the last week or so, and you've gotten a package too from some other equipment we ordered. So you've been sort of living in that whole project mess. So I guess start with, what are they starting on the boat itself when you went over there and kind of checked it out?
Yeah, they've been, because the weather has been pretty bad, raining and cold and windy. So they've definitely focused on the interior, or some electrical work. We've added some plugs. They haven't done this yet, but as part of a package we got, there was a TV in the salon, but it's 32-inch TV, which is a little small for the salon, and so we're moving this one to the owner's cabin. And I bought a 43-inch TV, so they'll swap those. Let's see. Well, they do some work in the engine compartments. They've been adding the MPPD controllers. That's in preparation for when we will put the frame with the solar panels. Today they were adding these fuel filters.
And we, just before we move on, we ditched a couple batteries in that process too.
Yeah, so that was interesting because so the factory, out of the factory by default, the boat comes out with 4 AGM batteries. You have the option to add one through Fontaine Peugeot, so we have 5. And then we had made the decision to add two more, so a total of seven, because we have 2,000 watt of solar panels. And then I get
and by
to
the
the
way,
boat.
like coming to that conclusion took us a long time because we were doing all of this calculations and figuring out how much power we needed and the battery storage and capacity of the
Yeah,
solar panels. I mean, so this wasn't just like oh yeah, let's just add two batteries. It actually took us some time to think through that. So I was really surprised how quickly that decision changed, once we
well, and not counting the conversations about
Oh
lithium
yeah.
and all this.
Research and
Yeah.
everything.
So though I get to the boat and I see someone working in the starboard engine compartment, and then I see that they're preparing like a platform. Then like, oh, it's like, what are you doing? And they said, oh, that's where the two additional batteries will go. And I'm thinking, oh, is there another spot? Because I thought we will use this spot for the air compressor.
Right, because for diving to
Dive.
fill our tanks, yeah.
Yeah. So then at that point, I'm like, oh man, where else? Is there another spot for the batteries? And then if not, then where else can we put the air compressor? And so plus I had some other questions, and I needed to meet with Pierre from Chimada, and so it's great. Talk to Baptiste, and Baptiste talked to Pierre, and then on Friday afternoon he came to the boat, and we had a kind of a conversation about this.
Yeah, but I guess the thing that's so, again, just fascinating is they're doing stuff and they're putting batteries in places because we said, oh, add a couple batteries. And next thing you know, now we have no place to put our air compressor. And so these are the kinds of things I think that it's useful for you to be there in person and see kind of as it's going on, because they wouldn't necessarily know that, right?
Well, it's not there is no place to put the air compressor if the batteries are there, because the other people have put the air compressor in some other locations on the boat, and so you could put it in the compartment forward.
Sure, but that's where we plan to put it. Like, we don't want to put it
Yeah,
in the
but at
bow
the
of the
same
boat because then
time,
you got to carry your tanks or whatever to the front of the boat and
correct.
back. Yeah,
Exactly. There hasn't been that level of communication with our dealer to say, okay, if we install the seventh batteries, we didn't ask the question, where will
where
they be
would they go?
located?
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't ask like, hey, by the way, are you planning to
Where are
add
you
an
going
air
to put your air
compressor one
compressor?
day?
Yeah, exactly.
So those are the things that you're not thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
because you have so many other things to think about. So ideally, those type of details will be discussed, beforehand, so you don't have to do a last minute change.
It's just so funny. Again, like I said, you make all these calculations and have countless conversations. You get advice from people. You go, okay, we're going to add two more batteries, and then it goes completely out the window on the ground. And you're so hopefully, I mean, I'm crossing my fingers that we made the right decision on that. But
yeah, well, I think so, and also in 3 to 4 years, the expectation will be that we'll probably switch to lithium. It will be cheaper, and there'll be more options. So worst case, I don't know. I think we'll be okay, especially what he was saying with the 2,000 watt of those new solar panels. They're very, very efficient. So we'll see. We'll just have to live on the boat and monitor. But
okay, so let's switch a little bit. So we ordered a bunch of equipment and supplies, extra stuff, and I'll let you talk about kind of what all that, because it's staring you in the face because it's in your apartment right now.
Yeah.
But
it's
let's start with describe. You borrowed your mom's car. Like, describe the size of the car, because I've seen the car. It is not a large car by so then you had to go pick all this stuff up. So
and my parents live 2.5 hours away, so I was able to borrow their car, which was very helpful to go to the bigger stores because they're like 15 minutes away from downtown. But also because there was this shipment that we were going to get, so I didn't know really how big it would be. And so the car is a decent sized car, I would say, especially for a French car.
For a French car, but in U.S. terms, it's a tiny car. It's I would call it a subcompact car. If you're renting a car, it's a very tiny car.
Yeah, it has a type of it's like a small SUV because it has like a top, like a hatchback type
It's
thing.
a
Like,
hatchback, but it's
yeah,
not an SUV.
not in the size compared to the US,
Yeah.
but and then it's an older car, so you can fold the backrest on the seat, but the seat, nowadays I was like expecting the seat to like disappear in the bottom of the car,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh no, only the top.
So when you went to the warehouse and you were looking at all the stuff you had to fit in there, how did you even get it in the car?
Oh, well, it's just, I just started to organize stuff and loading the car little by little. And then I had a call, so I had
That's
to
like a
hurry
special
up.
talent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And
so
so I
what was
still,
in there? Yeah. What was in there? What
there's a lot of gears that are,
like
for the
rigging stuff,
rigging,
safety stuff?
lines,
Mhm.
bunch of like equipment, various equipments like knives and jack lines and life jackets and fenders and I don't know, everything.
Spare parts and
Yeah,
blocks and
so lots of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So and a life raft. So I still have the life raft. So basically I put everything in my car, came to the
Oh, you can
apartment.
fit the life raft. That's so funny.
Yeah, well, plus it's super heavy, and so I was like, there is no point to bring it to the apartment. I would need really something to wheel it here. And so I was like, well, can I put it inside the boat? But the boat is on blocks, so to lift it up there, that would be like
No.
really,
That's not going to work.
So, but everybody is like super, super helpful, super nice. So I talked to the guy from the warehouse and say, hey, can I leave the life raft for a little longer in your warehouse until the boat is put in the water?
So does that mean when I get there, I have to help you carry the life raft?
Yeah, depending on except I've returned the car to my parents, so we don't have a car. And then if it's when you come, then we'll rent a car anyway to move around. So. But hopefully, the boat will be in the water by then, and then it'll be easier to bring the life raft on the boat.
Yeah. Okay. So what's happening with the mast and all the cables and stuff going through and like everything?
And before that, because I've been doing some Amazon shopping, so I've been buying like tools, and so I've been collecting those in the apartment here. So it's it's really like a warehouse here.
Inside your apartment.
Yeah. So the mast, the boat was
People must be
scheduled.
wondering what you're doing. Like they must be.
I don't know.
Although it is next to a port, so maybe they see it a lot more.
Yeah, and I have also like 2 folding bikes in the apartment. So lots of stuff.
And you're one person. They're like, "What's going on? What's with the two?"
Yeah. What is he trafficking in there?
Yeah, exactly.
So the mast went up this morning. So that was pretty cool. It's well coordinated effort with a company that does raise the mast with Uchimata that has to prepare everything beforehand, and also work with that company to basically put the mast safely on the boat. And everything happens very quickly.
Were they able to put the spare halyard in there?
Yeah, not the spare one. So we bought new ones, higher quality ones, and then smaller diameter. So I had brought those lines onto the boat, labeled them, and I'm not sure if they did it last night or before leaving or early this morning. But that was done.
That's cool that we got that done, because having to redo that after the mast was up would be, obviously you have to know how to do that anyway, but
yeah, I mean, it's not too bad to run the lines, and so I might have to swap maybe the main. Oh, not the main might be okay. I don't know, but like the spinnaker halyard, because there are some issues sometimes the way the lines are being run inside the mast, and then there might be some chafing. So it might be good to use the FP line, and then and after a few sails, see if there's any chafing or not. And then if there is any resolve the issue, hopefully, and only until that's everything is resolved, and put the nice halyard in there. So I might swap out maybe the spin halyard at one point. And then they'll do, so for all the rigging, the standing rigging, so they put that pretty quickly, and then somebody goes up the mast. So they have to send somebody up the mast to remove the attachment to this crane. And at the same time they go up, they put the wind instruments up there.
Right, because they have to run the cables for all the navigation stuff.
It's impressive how many cables are like coming down from the mast. There's like so many antennas, and you have the radar, and you have the iridium gold, you have the VHF antenna, you have the TV antenna, you have like so many things, and we still have to add one more. So this one was a little unfortunate, because we at the time we looked at people were adding in the kind of Wi-Fi antenna to have extended range to get Wi-Fi when you get in the marina or you're at anchor somewhere. But most people nowadays don't do this. They just buy a SIM card and use the data. And so what you need is really like a cellular antenna with a router. So at the time, we had probably added I think it was called Bad Boy, this antenna, at some time. Then we decided to remove it because the owners were like, other owners were saying it's useless, it's not worth the money.
Was it Rogue Wave? Bad Boy? I think it was.
Yeah, it was called like Bad Boy or Big Boy or something like stupid like this. And so we removed that, but we never afterwards really look at solutions for like cellular. Kind of extended range for cellular, and
so that still has to be resolved.
So that was a conversation that I had at the time when Pierre from Uchimeta came. So he said, okay, we use Glomex, and some owners use it, and they seem to be happy with it. And it's kind of a little satellite, little dome. So it seems to be okay. But then the SIM cards, you have like 2 slots. They are directly on the dome. So ideally you put it up as high as you want, or as you can, because then you have better range. But then if you want to swap SIM cards, then you have to go up the mast and swap cards. So it's not super convenient. And then there was another system that I was told about that seemed to be better. But we were trying to do this before the mast goes up. And I talked to Pochon, a kind of electronic type company here in La Rochelle. And they didn't have this, but then they recommended another device from a company called, so the one I was talking about earlier was called from Digital Yacht, and that's a UK company. But they recommended a router called PepWave. It's from a company called PepLink in California. And they said that's from the 3 I mentioned, they said that's the best one. So they had some in stock, but then the coordination to try to get that antenna up before raising the mast, it just didn't happen.
So is that going to happen though this week or next week, or?
It's going to happen at some point. At this point, there is no rush anymore. But
all right, so at some point, yeah, okay.
Yeah, at some point. So hopefully there's room still for one more cable to bring it down the mast and get that done.
Okay, so how did that feel, when the mast was finally raised? I mean, was that like a moment for you, or,
Yeah, I think
hope you took pictures, by the way.
Yeah, I did take pictures. I was a little too close. The crane guy came to talk to me and says, hey, you need to stay, this distance away. And I'm like, okay. And something could go wrong. And but yeah, that was another little moment, because I guess the first one was when I saw the boat at the factory. The second one was, when the boat was transported. And I would say this one was another one, because it starts to look like a boat, Before it was just a hull, it doesn't have a mast. So now you have you have some rigging, and so it definitely looks like a boat.
That's so cool.
So that was, and it's obviously they know how to do it, and they do it well and quick. But, you're looking at this and you're like, that's not a small job. And then when the first guy goes up the mast and they just barely uh, secure the mast, and you're like, whoa, shouldn't you like check everything before sending somebody? And, but
Yeah, it's
everybody
like a
has a
little
job.
bolt. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just everything happens very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, that's cool. So, yeah, you've seen your parents, you've been spending a little bit of time with them, I'm sure eating a lot of galettes and stuff. And we're kind of going through all this while this coronavirus thing is picking up steam. And hopefully I'll be able to get over there and meet you over there, and not get stuck here and you're stuck there. That would be awful. But
Mm-hmm.
so my fingers are crossed. But what about the other things like the Flexitique and the cockpit tent and some other things we were getting done?
Yeah. So we bit about the Flexitique. So this I had gone to the factory. I don't know, probably the first week I came here. They were finishing all the cuts for a boat when I
Oh, so
was
they're
there.
done with all the pieces. They just need to.
Yeah, exactly. So they are just rolled, and so what they will come install this once basically the commissioning is done.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of reasons for that. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
now there's a lot of traffic. I mean,
Yeah, of course.
you have every day like 5-6 people working on the boat. So it's pretty impressive. There's a lot of people working on different things. So it would not be a good time anyway with people going back and forth to put that on. And number two, the boat during this period of time, we've paid, we own the boat, but the boat is really in the possession of ACY/Uchimata, the commissioning company. And what they don't want is people to come aboard and potentially break something.
Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
then suddenly like everybody's pointing the finger. So they want to be responsible. So even me, I can come onto the boat, but the agreement is I basically coordinate with Baptiste, the local person from our dealer here.
It's so funny.
Checks.
You need a chaperone. They won't even let you on your own boat,
Yeah. I know for owners it might feel a little weird, but there is a reason behind it. That's kind of what I explained, and they've given me a couple of examples of issues that have happened with or trusting the owner, and the owner goes there and does something, and then doesn't own to it afterwards. So so they basically have to pay to fix something that is broken. Mm-hmm. So in order to avoid blaming, having kind of playing the blame game or having to pay for stuff that makes sense. So you just coordinate. They're pretty flexible. So but at that time I can come up, and obviously another rule is there's the workers, they work from 9 to noon. At noon it's lunchtime, and from noon to 2, and then from 2 to 6 they work. And so it's a 35-hour week in France. So the day goes by pretty quick. So they have some task, and if you go there and just talk to them, and then you slow them down, and so it's kind of, that's what they ask the owners to do. So you can obviously come on the boat, just coordinate with the dealer here locally, and then that's what happens.
So the tent. So it's been a process, right? So let me just kind of explain. So we had the option of ordering the tent from the factory, but we wanted it so you could have the clear windows, you could have the textiling, or you could have it closed, and you can roll them up and down and zipper them off and on and things like that. So that wasn't an option on the factory options. Mm-hmm. So we found a custom person nearby, and he was a little elusive in the beginning of this whole process of kind of nailing him down. But it sounds like you tracked him down, and we're in his schedule somewhere, it sounds like. How are you feeling after kind of meeting with them and seeing their work and stuff?
It's the boating industry here. It's hard to schedule and to say, hey, can you do my tent in March? And they know there will be scheduled changes. So they don't want to schedule
They don't
things
bother,
beforehand.
putting you in the books.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, hey, you know what? When your boat is here or when you come here, like let's talk about it.
Yeah, they're very
So
in the moment, which is just another kind of bizarre thing. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because there's so many moving parts and things, not everybody controls everything. So it's hard for them they just adjust.
Mhm.
And so it's hard for owners because you're like, hey, I want commitments, I want dates, I want this, I want that. And if they spend their time to talking to every owner about all these details and suddenly things get delayed, and it's a waste of time. So anyway, now I'm talking to them, super nice, super helpful. Like you said, we wanted to get a little bit more out of the tent. We want to be able to leave the tent as long as possible.
Right.
And but at the same time, if it's sunny and we want to be able to roll the plastic windows so we have some fresh air without having to remove the panels.
The whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, and then if it rains suddenly in the afternoon, you want to be able to roll back the plastic and then roll the textile to be able to see. So that was kind of the idea. And so we talked about these. They're going to do these. The other thing we wanted that doesn't come with the standard FP tent is the panels in front of the helm station. We wanted to have, not just plastic, because when it's raining, foggy, you cannot really see very well, but they have something called strata glass, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still some flexible. It can be rolled loosely, but it will give more of a feel like a regular glass panel.
Is that what are we going to try to get that? I mean, because I thought we looked at that at one point and it was pretty expensive.
Well, I'm still asking. We're finalizing the details. We'll get a quote.
You have Cadillac taste there, buddy. You better.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
You have to explore. You have to explore. Everything, and then you make decisions. So we'll see.
I don't know. You have your Harkin winches and all this stuff. You have pretty good taste in boat stuff. It's just a little bit scary.
You're rubbing on me.
Maybe.
So anyway, we'll see.
Very cool. So what's on deck? What are the next things that are coming? So mast went up today. What else is going on?
Well, the big one is the bottom paint. So far, because of the weather, it's not been possible. But now it looks like the next 10 days, it'll be sunny. So for sure, there's probably a little bit of backlog. We are one boat that it needs to get the bottom paint on. But I imagine there is quite a few other boats that are in the same situation. So the good news is, the next 10 days looks good. So they have some flexibility, but I'm sure they're going to want to get that done because who knows, the weather could change. So then because we're talking about how we've had many discussions about batteries. Bottom paint has been another topic where we've had many discussions.
Right, went back and forth on copper and everything else. Yeah.
So we've given up on the copper coat, and we're going.
It's too bad. If you want to buy it, you can't. Yeah, it's too bad.
Well, you can, but the weather, like at this time of the year, I mean, it's definitely there's some logistical stuff involved.
And we covered a lot of that in one of our first podcasts together. I think. Yeah.
So we're going with the standard paint that is suggested by our dealer. But now it's like I was reviewing the notes we've had and the conversations we've had, and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So kind of send.
We're moving the water line up still, right?
So one is to see how many coats of the epoxy primer, and then so that's something we need to clarify. And then after that, it's the anti-fouling. So there are 3 different coats, 2 different products. And so the other decision, based on feedback from some owners, is that if you're basically a liveaboard cruiser with all the equipment, you're going to sit lower in the water. So the standard height for the bottom paint is kind of 10 centimeters, so about 4 inches too low.
Cool. So bottom paint's a big thing happening next. And
well, after that, I think as soon as the bottom paint is done, the next thing will be they want the boat in the water. And
oh, wow. So when's that going to happen?
Well, after the bottom paint is done. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but it could happen pretty soon. And also they have to coordinate with the trucking company because the boat has to be put back on the truck and it will be driven down the ramp. And it has to be also coordinated with a low tide because they bring the boat on the ramp, they put it on blocks, and then you wait for the tide to come back up and the boat starts floating.
Oh, it's like the olden days. So they don't use like the lift or the...
So they do, but when our boat got transported, they were saying there was a backlog on the port, and so there was no room for our boat. And so typically there is a crane, and then they put the boat in the water there, and that's the way it works. But since we're on the other side, we're kind of on the marina side. At this point, we're not close to the lift.
Oh, there's like a log jam. Okay.
Yeah, so they use the truck and they do this. So that'll be definitely a priority because they want to make some room for other boats to come there. And I think it's also a little easier once it's on the water. Then they can also tension the standing rigging, and they wait until that to really make those adjustments because the boat apparently, will move.
So do you think? So let's see. I leave. In a week, in a couple days, maybe. Do you think the boat will be in the water by then? Hard to say.
Hard to say. But because the weather forecast right now looks pretty good, my guess is that they're definitely going to shift into gears to focus on bottom paints for all different boats. So I think that's given the weather forecast, that's probably the highest priority.
Cool. So sounds like you got a lot done the last few weeks, and more to come. And I'm excited to be able to come out there. I've got my fingers crossed that I will still be able to do that.
Very good. Yeah, looking forward to see you here. That'll be another moment.
So what have I learned through all this? We are all connected, and we are all at the mercy of what Mother Nature has planned. Whether it's hurricane season, a snow blizzard in the mountains, or a global pandemic, she always has the last word. What about you? How have the current circumstances impacted your own plans, or even your own ideas about what you want to do in the future? Please visit Covert Castaway Facebook page and share your story. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, like, or share with another Covert Castaway. Fair winds for now.